Hi everyone, so this is a short video that I planned to do for a long time about recruitment. We're not gonna focus on like low-level stuff and algorithms and data structures, not necessarily. We're gonna focus on just, asking the right questions when we're doing interviews and from the candidate's perspective, how to answer one of these questions. So, a bit of background. I've been in the industry for almost 15 years now. I've worked in numerous companies. I've been an independent contractor. I've been interviewed almost 50 times, something like that. I don't really know, but that's my wild guess. And I've interviewed at least 200 to 300 people. So, one of the interesting questions that you can give if you have a language that supports class and struct, so C++, for example, and C sharp, but let's focus on C sharp, is the difference. What's the difference between a class and a struct? And what's the reason for this question and why is it so interesting? The reason that it's so interesting is because, candidates talk to each other and they talk to the companies that consulting companies that try to basically place them on a position, and questions float around, and no matter how many questions you're gonna have, if you're doing aggressive recruitment against a market, you're gonna see that candidates will know the questions ahead of time. That's that's just how it happens. So, what you need to do is you don't ask questions that can be answered by a bunch of bullet points. What you're really interested in is the level of understanding of a concept or of a problem. So, this question actually is interesting because it sort of looks like a list of bullet points, but that's not really what we're after here. Because what we're after is, we don't care if you just read 5 bullet points from MSDN. What's the difference between a class and a struct? What we're interested in is all of these additional questions that we can ask here. So, for example, where would you use a struct versus a class? Where the class lives and where the struct lives. Is the struct on a heap or a stack? Is it always like that? What sort of algorithms would you invent or do using a struct versus a class? What data structures? Um, what's the difference when you're trying to do concurrency algorithms or concurrency primitives? We're gonna touch on garbage collection if we're on a garbage collected language like C sharp. We're gonna do a lot of things with this question. So from this single question, you can actually expand into everything that you can have in the software industry using C sharp, for example. Sorry. So this is the question that I would argue you want to ask. So this is one of the questions because it's not really easy to prepare for, because when you just memorize these bullets, that's no good, because if you're gonna get asked about certain data structures and algorithms, you're not gonna make it basically. If you're gonna get asked about the stack in the heap, CPU caches, utilization, stuff like that, if you don't know, then you're gonna have a problem. And the interesting bit about this is that you don't need to know all of these things to be effective, because if you have certain base knowledge about a class and a struct, you can deduct most of these things without knowing the answer ahead of time, because um, it means that if you know something about the class and something about the struct, you can deduce the rest, and you can have all of these like deep thoughts about what sort of algorithms you would apply to it, what sort of data structures you would invent having a class versus having a struct, and all sorts of these things can be sort of deducted, you know, when you're doing the interview, or much rather when you're being interviewed. So I've seen people do this and they absolutely spot on, like solve the problem. The question is also interesting because you can have a discussion in term, not so much like a Q&A session here. So yeah, so that's one of the interesting questions. So as a summary, you want to be asking questions like that, and as a candidate, for example, you don't want to like memorize all of these things. You want to be effective, and you want to have these deep thoughts. So there's other questions that we can have that are somewhat similar to this question. So for example, there is another one which is often asked: what's the difference between an interface and abstract class? And I absolutely hate this question, but you can still have some value out of it if you ask: where would you use an interface versus where would you use the abstract class? C# 9 is getting methods in interfaces. So bring that about, right? So what's the difference now? Is it a difference really? So where would you use one or the other? How they're built? Why, for example, if C# 9 is bringing the default implementation into interfaces, like default method implementation, what's the rationale behind that? Why they did that? So is the abstract class now a something that's redundant? Should it be removed in the next version of C Sharp? So ask these sort of questions because that actually can leave you with these deep thoughts where you have this interesting discussion and back and forth. So yeah, okay. So that's for the video. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, and yeah, I'm gonna be making like more videos like that, probably more extensive ones when we're gonna try answering some of these and having like a discussion possibly. That's gonna be interesting. So stay tuned and bye for now.